What happens when winter scarcity, sticker shock at the grocery store, and rising cross-border tensions all hit at once? Ontario is finding out. It's Saturday, January 31st, and here's the quick weather for the capital. Temperatures from -16 to -9 degrees Celsius. No snow or rain. Let's start close to home. Ottawa's transit network is taking it on the chin again. A switch problem at the south end of Line 2 has halted trains to Limebank and Bowesville, with R2 buses subbing in. Line 1 is also feeling the strain as a shortage of available LRT cars, linked to wheel assembly issues, reduces service. And it's not just rails. OC Transpo's mechanical maintenance backlog and delays in new bus deliveries have forced thousands of bus trip cancellations this month. If you're planning weekend travel, budget extra time and check for updates before you head out. Down the 401, Toronto's Eglinton Crosstown is still in the "it's coming, we promise" phase. Test runs saw some minor emergency brake occurrences, not safety critical according to Metrolinx, and officials say the issue shouldn't delay opening. The rub? There's still no official opening date. Torontonians have heard that tune before. Speaking of Toronto, the Maple Leafs skid continues. Seattle beat Toronto 5-2, stretching the Kraken's win streak to 3 and leaving the Leafs at 0-5-1 in their last 6. Matty Beniers scored early to extend his point streak to 5 games. Shane Wright snapped a 13-game goal drought with 2, and Joey Daccord stopped 29 shots. Toronto did get goals from Nicholas Robertson and Morgan Riley, but the Kraken kept finding answers and added an empty netter for Jared McCann's 199th career goal. The Leafs need a reset, and fast. On the hardwood, the Raptors are trending steadier than in recent years, built around a renewed defensive identity. League chatter says Toronto is unlikely to swing big at the deadline, preferring to evaluate what they have and make a playoff push with internal growth. The big splashy rumor, Giannis Antetokounmpo, remains just that. His price tag and the Bucks' stance make a move highly improbable. Expect Eastern Conference teams, including the Raps, to do more positioning than overhauling. Across Ontario, winter operations are getting squeezed. Municipalities from Lanark County to Brockville report road salt shortages after an unusually early, relentless run of snow events. Crews are rationing, using sand salt mixes on most routes and reserving straight salt for ice. Even with the world's largest salt mine operating in Goderich, demand has outpaced supply. Brockville says it has roughly 200 tons left and is stretching it to last this season. Translation: drive cautiously and leave extra space. The grip under your tires may be thinner than you expect. If you felt misled in the grocery aisle, you're not alone. Marketplace found up to a third of products displaying maple leaves or other Canadian symbols, even on items like orange and pineapple juice that aren't grown here. Shoppers report confusion and a sense they may be paying more for Canadian branding that masks a U.S. origin. The Canadian Food Inspection Agency identified a dozen maple washing cases, but issued no fines, opting to resolve them without penalties, fueling concerns about accountability. Bottom line, turn the package around. Made in and product of often tell a very different story than the front label. On the foreign policy front, tensions with Washington are simmering on multiple burners. First, Cuba. The United States has ratcheted up pressure with tariffs on goods from countries that sell or provide oil to Cuba. Mexico's President Claudia Sheinbaum says Mexico has halted oil shipments to the island on its own terms, not due to U.S. pressure. Still, Washington is urging Mexico to further isolate Havana, and after U.S. intervention in Venezuela, President Trump suggested Cuba's government is on the brink. For Canada, any U.S. move to topple Cuba's leadership would be even more complicated than the Venezuela episode, both diplomatically and economically. Ottawa has long balanced a pragmatic approach to Cuba with close U.S. ties. That tightrope just got thinner. Aerospace is another flashpoint. President Trump is threatening to decertify Canada's Bombardier Global Express business jets and slap 50% tariffs on Canadian aircraft unless Canada certifies 4 Gulfstream models. He calls Canada's current stance illegal and a barrier to U.S. sales. Unions on both sides of the border warn that a tit-for-tat war could disrupt the integrated North American aerospace supply chain and jeopardize thousands of jobs. Layered on top is Canada's role in continental defense. Ottawa has committed to buying 88 F-35s, but there's chatter about building Sweden's Saab Gripen fighter jet and the globalized surveillance platform in Canada, potentially reducing the F-35 buy. The U.S. ambassador to Canada, Pete Hoekstra, has already hinted that NORAD operations could change if Canada scales back, with the U.S. boosting its own fleet and presence in Canadian skies to compensate. That's not just procurement, it's sovereignty. Which brings us north. Canada is collaborating with the U.S. and Finland on new icebreakers, essential for a warming but still unforgiving Arctic. Yet there's a sovereignty wrinkle. Ships used by the U.S. could enhance American operational leverage in waters Ottawa claims. Add reports that Washington's updated national security strategy asserts broad access rights across the Western Hemisphere, and you have a recipe for friction over who calls the shots in the Arctic. Meanwhile, in Ottawa, Prime Minister Mark Carney's cabinet is gaming out whether building Gripen and GlobalEye domestically will trigger fresh U.S. tariffs. Some in government are leaning on the so-called taco theory, take actions, calm outcomes, hoping Washington's response is more bark than bite. Hope is not policy, but it is politics. Back in Montreal, foreign policy met public protest. Demonstrators, including members of Independent Jewish Voices of Canada, rallied outside a trade talk attended by Foreign Affairs Minister Anita Anand, accusing the government of using loopholes to route arms through the United States to Israel, despite stated restrictions on exports to active conflict zones. They called for transparency and for practice to match policy. The government will face sustained pressure to show its paper trail and clarify how export controls are enforced when goods transit through allies. Threading these stories together is a familiar Canadian tension: integrated supply chains and alliances that deliver prosperity and security, but also expose us when politics shift, whether that's salt shipments, airplane certifications, icebreakers, or food labels. For Ottawa commuters, that can look like a missed train and a slower bus. For shoppers, a maple leaf that doesn't mean what it implies. For policymakers, a series of choices where every door has a draft. Quick reset on your Saturday. Temperatures from -16 to -9 degrees Celsius. No snow or rain. If you're driving, watch for sanded stretches and give the plows room. If you're transiting, check Line 2 and R2 bus updates before you head out. That's it for today. If this helped you navigate the week, share it with a neighbor. We'll be back tomorrow with the latest on transit fixes, trade wins, and who's hot or not on the ice in the court. Stay warm.